Hi everyone, it's Jerry. Let's have a look at a game from round 3 of the 2018 Candidates Tournament. On the white end, Levon Aronian, he's paired against Vladimir Kramnik. So let's dive in and see what happened. We have a Ruy Lopez Berlin defense. Not the famous Berlin Endgame, but rather d3. Very topical, simply securing e4. Bishop c5. After just these 5 moves, what do we have? Imbalance related to minor pieces and structure. Continuing castles, queen e7, retaining some flexibility with the king. And now h3. One of the more popular moves is to connect knights here. But h3 is on board. White is minus a light square bishop, so some pawns are around to help control the light squares. Now we have rook to g8. This isn't new. There are a few games in the databases with this move, rook to g8, very caveman-like, going from a closed file to another closed file, and there's one clear idea in mind. Launch the g-pawn and then blast things open. If g4 is in, that hits with the fork, and there's a nice prize waiting at the end of the g file for black. So this move, rook to g8, would be ridiculous if knight b to d2 was played, because there would be no guarantee of the g file opening up in this case without the pawn on h3. Much different story with the pawn on h3. So let's see what follows. Rook g8. The idea is clear. g5 straight away. You don't need additional support with h6. King h1, just getting off of the g file, and this prevents the move g5. Playing g5. So right now, bishop takes pawn, and this is a very uncomfortable pin. So you'll notice if instead of the move king to h1, if knight c3 is played here, black could play g5 and just straight away. Because if bishop takes pawn in this case, with the king still on the g file, there would be the shot bishop takes h3, followed by exploiting the pin. So that's why after rook g8, the king is already just getting off of the g file. It's not as tactically vulnerable on h1. This prevents g5. And in the databases, we have h6 played. In the few games that I saw, at least, h6 is played on this move 8 in all 3 games. The new move, I believe, is the move played in the game right here, knight to h5. So certainly eyeing up a devastating square on f4. He's just a wonderful piece from there. And also, their queen is now there to help facilitate this g5 advance. So continuing, we have c3, looking for the d4 break in the center, g5 straight away. You'll notice that when knight h5 is played, he's on an unprotected square, but there is not yet a tactic. Knight takes pawn could be met with a capture, and the queen is there to defend the knight. c3, g5, notice that if knight takes pawn now, and that was the move played in the game, there is no queen takes knight defending here. So what's the idea? Press forward, g4. This is a pawn sacrifice. Black wants to rip open this position at all costs. g4 is in, there's tension, and there's a lead in development for black. Look at the spectators on the queen side for Team White. Immediate tension against h3. The g file is a moment away from being cracked open. In the game, we have d4 shutting down the bishop's influence towards g1. It seems like white has enough pieces on g4. Why not capture on g4? This would be embarrassing. Queen h4, followed by knight g3. And how do you stop queen h1 mate next? You don't. Can't capture the knight. So there's no capturing on g4. First, shut down the bishop. Bishop d6. And now g3. You still can't capture on g4 in this position either, because there'd be just a wonderful attack. Capturing, queen h4, kill the knight, sweep in here, look at the spectator. Not a single white piece is off of the back rank, and all of the black pieces, basically, are attacking the white king. This is already minus 12 and growing. So, can't capture here. What's tried is g3. This idea of queen h4 is too good in too many lines. So that's shut down. Bishop takes knight. Pawn takes. Queen takes pawn, and Levon says, can we please get the queens exchanged? I'm really fearing for my king's life. Black says, no way. I'm going after you. Queen exchange not happening. White does not like the thought of having the position opened up, so does not want a pawn exchange. h4 it is. This is the only good piece that white has. Playing. She's central, and now this post is brought into question. Find a new home. Queen c4 is preventing f5. The main thing to note here, well, I guess there are many things to note in this position, but the one thing to me that sticks out is that we have an instance of opposite color bishops. So it's kind of like whoever can activate their bishop in this opposite color bishop position first is probably going to be doing very well. And ideally, you would like to have the light square bishop on this diagonal, main diagonal, and there's a nice prize waiting for that bishop once on the main diagonal. So with this in mind, black would like to play the move f5. There's only one obstacle on this main diagonal. It's the pawn in e4. So black would like to play f5. Notice that queen to c4 interferes with this. She is opposite an unprotected rook. Playing to d5 would run into knight to f6, and black had already think about picking up this this pawn on e4 straight away. So in the game, it's queen c4, bishop e6 check, queen b5, c6, queen to a4. Better resistance apparently in the computer's eyes is queen d3, staying a bit more central. It's true, she can be struck at further, but queen a4, and this is already in the computer's eyes a -4, call it, position. Just completely winning for Team Black. So what follows is, well, f5, with this idea in mind, these moves go hand in hand. Just get the pawn out of the way, and the black pieces will be able to operate on the long diagonal, the light squares. These guys are still just hanging out over here on the queen side. Bishop g5. What do you do? Where should you go with your queen in this position? Nowhere. No time to be reacting. Snap off the bishop and get the move back. A little bit more investment material-wise, and this attack continues. f4, breaking down the last of white's remaining defense. g3 is hot. What to do? Queen to d1. Underdeveloping, bringing the queen back to defend some squares around the white king. It's tough to really suggest something more. Capturing here is inviting the knight to a wonderful square on f4. Queen to d1 in the game, rook d8, queen to c1, pawn takes pawn, can't even take back, get hit with the fork. Knight a3, going to d2 allows queen takes pawn, queen h4, we already covered a couple lines where queen h4 is devastating. So knight to a3, a sad move to play. Just, I don't know if he's really any better placed on a3 than he is on b1. Okay, maybe the rook can defend one day, but that's just not going to happen. Rook to d3. Is this rook fully activated when he's on d8? No. He could see left, he could see right, he could see down. It's only when he is in this little plus direction, seeing in all directions, that he is fully optimized. Can't get any better than that. And he's in white's house. Rook to d1, bishop c5, or excuse me, bishop d5. A nice touch to this attacking position. Multiple pieces can be captured. You could take the bishop, of course. What would be the issue with this? Queen to e4. Let's just put a move on queen e4. and pawn takes pawn, and I don't want to go any further. You got a queen, a rook, 2 pawns, and a knight. Pick your favorite way to mate from here. It's a mate in 4. F3 is the move in the game. Let's have a look at just one other variation. If rook takes rook, well, this is no good either. Queen takes e4, looking for mate next. You can only stop it with f3. And once more, you are in big trouble. 2 pawns right here on the... Well, 2 pawns just 2 steps away from queening. Connected passers. Big trouble in this position as well. Another mate in 4. And the move in the game, f3. Chop. And there's just too much. There's no defense here. Pawn takes bishop is tried. Queen e2. And the queen is pinned, but after black's next move, g2, check, Aronian throws in the towel and says, I've had enough. What to do? Well, if the king only has 2 options, if you go to g1, that's embarrassing. Fork, followed by a discovered check, mate. Pawn what was that? What would this be exactly? Pawn takes rook, promoting to a queen with a discovered check and mate. And some other variation, king h2, would allow g1. That's a double check, forcing the king into this deadly f2 move. We know what would happen if the king steps up. And if he goes to h1, we would have a check. And even in this position, the game would end with black having 2 queens on the board for mate. This is as far as it went, though. After g2, game over. Aronian throws in the towel. A brutal game out of the Berlin. Again, not that famous Berlin Endgame position. Very lengthy games usually come about. Not a lengthy one here. A 27 mover. And if you're curious about the computer evaluation, the tail of the tape, even if you're not curious, here it is. Just looking through it here. Winning as black, this is a huge game. You don't see many games won with the black pieces. Well, we did here, a 27 mover with the Berlin. And looking at the inaccuracies, mistakes, and blunders, 3-3-1 for Aronian, 52 average centi-pawn loss, and triple zeros for Kramnik. 18 average centi-pawn loss. Basically, lower number, the better. And it doesn't get much better than that for Kramnik. Anyhow, as usual, feel free to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. And I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe took a thing or two away from it. That's all for now. Take care.